Community Chorus, and we welcome you to our concert this afternoon. This is our first concert post-COVID since 2019,
wow.
and we are thrilled to have you with us. Music has the power to inspire, move us, teach us, and bring people together. Ne'ima has always had this mission, and we hope you enjoy what we share with you today. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to Mackenzie Grant here at the Summit for coordinating the details and making this concert possible. Before we get started with the show, I want to take a minute and introduce our new conductor, Benjamin Gruder. And our new accompanist, Allison Moore. Thank you both for making music with us and keeping rehearsals so energetic, fun, and enlightening. I'd like to thank the Ne'ima singers who donate their time, energy, and passion for Jewish music. Their dedication keeps Ne'ima vital and relevant. Most importantly, thanks to all of you, the audience, for coming out today. If you like what we do and are interested in singing Jewish music, please leave your contact information on the clipboard I have on the back table there, and so we can contact you. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming our moderator, Rabbi Sue Gulick.
So Jewish tradition has the formula called a bracha, or blessing. And blessings are from something as ordinary as eating. We say prayer of blessings before we eat, for a beautiful sunset or a sunrise, for things that happen frequently and things that happen very rarely. Our first piece, Shechianu, by the composer Andrea Jill Higgins, is a setting of the blessing for when we're doing something new, something we haven't done within the past year, and as Sherry just said, something we haven't done since before the plague, which is having a concert with you. So our first piece, Shechianu, praising God for keeping us in life, for sustaining us, and bringing us to this happy time. A verse that we all know well, how good it is for brothers to sit to dwell together in unity. But we're singing it as the Jews of Uganda sing it. The small Abu Dayo tribe converted to Judaism in the early 20th century. Their population is estimated at 2,500, having once been as large as 3,000 prior to the persecutions of the Idi Amin regime. Like their neighbors, they are subsistence farmers. Most Abu Dayo are of Bagawa origin, except for those from the Namuta who are Basoga. They speak Lagunda, Lasugo, or Liguare, and I'm not sure which one this song is written in. But they have learned Hebrew as well, so the second part is in their version of Hebrew.
Lava, lava,
lava, wekuyo, unundi, wekusani, sa. Uranda, okutula. Lava, wekuyo, unundi, wekusani, sa. Uranda, okutula. Ine matohu, umanaim.
Not as many are aware of Ladino, Judeo-Spanish. Flori Jacunda, who is the composer of our next piece, made it her life's mission to increase knowledge of Ladino and wrote this beautiful Hanukkah song, Ocho Candelicas, 8 candles, about the joys of Hanukkah and lighting the Hanukkah candles.
And our Ladino ensemble.
Steve Schmidt, and Colonel Weisinger on instrumentals. Thank you very much. You're going to get to sit down for a while and enjoy the music together. Well, I tell you some stories, because that's my underhat is storyteller. The first story I'd like to tell you is a story about one of my favorite storytellers of all, Rabbi Nachman of Breslev. Rabbi Nachman of Breslev lived over 200 years ago, and he was famous for telling things that appeared to be folk tales, just simple stories, but they have levels and levels of meaning. So I invite you to enjoy it on its simple level, but also to think about what you might learn from this story. Once upon a time, there was a king and queen who, more than anything else in the world, desired a child. They tried and tried for years, and finally, in the very fullness of time, the queen gave birth to a son. The entire kingdom was delighted. Finally, there was an heir to the king. And as the years went on, it got better and better. When he was 3, he would sit next to the king's throne in the courtroom and listen quietly to everything that went on. He really paid attention. By the time he was 7, people were starting to listen to his advice. And by the time he reached teenage years, 13 years old, people knew that the king had a very worthy successor. All was wonderful until one morning the prince woke up and decided that he was a chicken. He wouldn't wear clothes anymore. He wouldn't eat with a knife and fork. And he wouldn't talk. He would just the king and queen were beside themselves what to do. They called for doctors, for wise people, for religious leaders. Anyone help them? set of rooms in one small area of the palace, because after all, they couldn't let him run around naked as a chicken and looking at everybody. Finally, when they were at their wits' end, a wise rabbi came, and he said, I think I can cure the prince, but you have to promise me to do whatever I tell you and don't ask questions. The king and queen were ready to try anything at this point, so they led the rabbi to the place where the chicken prince was being kept. For a whole day, the rabbi sat and watched. Then, the next day, the rabbi went in the room with the prince, took off all of his clothes, started pecking corn up off the floor, and barked at the prince. Bark! Bark! The prince sat for a moment. Bark! Bark, bark, bark. And the prince and the rabbi walked to each other, picked their food up off the floor, and had a very nice day eating chickens together. The king and queen were horrified. They thought maybe the prince was contagious. Bird flu, you never know. So, that night, when the prince fell asleep, the rabbi came out to the king and queen and said, I want you to shut off all the fires, put out all the fires that warm this part of the palace, and open all the windows. The rooms where the prince was got very cold. The next morning, when the prince woke up, the prince and the rabbi were shivering in the cold. The rabbi paused for a moment, went over to where his clothes were, and started putting on his clothes. The chicken prince looked at him. Oh, chicken? Oh, clothes? And the rabbi said, cold. Clothes warm. The prince thought about that for a minute, and then went to the cupboard where his clothes were, and started putting on clothes. After a while, they had more fun, picking up their food from the floor, barking at one another. When the prince curled up for a nap, the rabbi went out to the king and queen and said, don't scatter lunch on the floor. Have the cook make some nice, warm, hot, very hot, vegetable soup and serve it with a spoon at the table. Lunchtime came. The cook brought out beautiful bowls of hot vegetable soup, put it on the table with beautiful silver spoons. The rabbi hopped up onto the chair like a chicken and began carefully eating the soup with a spoon. The prince was startled at this. Bok bok, soup? Bok bok, spoon? The rabbi said, soup good? Bok bok? Soup warm. The prince thought about that for a moment, hopped up on his chair, and very happily started eating soup with a spoon. Things proceeded quite well after that. Every day there was a little more talking and a little less walking, until finally the king and queen were overjoyed the prince had been cured. The rabbi said, not quite yet. I need one more private session with the prince before we can declare him cured. So the rabbi went with the prince alone for a walk. And he said to the prince, listen, I have a big favor to ask of you. You know that I'm really a chicken. But Passover's coming. And chickens get made into chicken soup. So if you promise not to tell anybody that I'm a chicken, I'll promise never to tell anybody that you're a chicken. And it will be our secret. And from that day to this, the prince has never been heard to I teach spiritual stories at the Psych Center where I work, and decades ago, a client said to me something I had never thought of in this story. He said, I know why the prince had to be a chicken. Why? He never played as a child. He never got to be a child. He needed to play. So I hope we all have some time for playing in our lives. This next story is also about a king. This king liked to find out what was going on all over his kingdom by disguising himself, sneaking out of the palace, and wandering around to see what was really going on. One evening, he came to a very poor section of the capital of his kingdom. And as he's walking down this very poor street, he realizes that it is the Jewish neighborhood. And he hears, coming from one of the houses, hey, yum, bum, hey, I-da-da-da-da, yum, bum, ba-da-da-da-da-da, hey, yum, bum, hey, I-da-da-da-da, yum, bum, ba-da-da-da-da. He says to himself, how can somebody who lives in this poverty be so happy? And he walked down the street until he found the house the music was coming from. It could barely be called a house. It was boards. He was afraid to knock on the door because he was afraid it would fall in. So he called out, is a stranger welcome here? And from inside, a voice called, come in, come in. A stranger is a gift from God. The king, disguised as a commoner, came in, and the man got up from the wooden box that was the only piece of furniture in the room. He offered the king his seat, and he said, I'm sorry, you just missed it. I just finished eating my dinner, and I don't have anything left to offer you. The king said, that's quite all right, but tell me, how is it that you are so happy? And the man said, God provides for my needs one day at a time. Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom. Blessed is God every day. The king and the man talked for a while more, and when the king went back to the palace that night, he said, this is too good to be real. I gotta test this guy. The man had told him, he said, how do you earn a living? The man said, I'm a cobbler. The king said, where is your store? And the man laughed. He said, you're sitting on it. It's this box of tools. Every day I take them into the town market square, and when anybody walks by with a broken heel or a sandal strap, I fix it. And the king said, from that you earn a living? And the man said, Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom, blessed be God, who provides for my needs day by day. So the king came up with a plan. He decided and put out an edict that anybody who wanted to cobble shoes in the town square needed a license. And that license would cost 5 gold pieces. The poor cobbler goes the next day to set up his box in the town square, and the policeman came up to him and said, you know, there's a new rule from the king that you need a license to do that, and the license cost 5 gold pieces. And the man said, if I had 5 gold pieces, I wouldn't be cobbling shoes in the town square. And he tried to figure out what he was going to do to earn a living. The king was wondering about that too, and so the next night, the king came back to the poor man's house. And yet from inside the house, he did not hear despair. He heard, hey, yum, bum, hey, I-di-di-di-di, yum, bum, ba-da-di-di-di-di, hey, yum, bum, hey, I-di-di-di-di, yum, bum, ba-da-di-di-di, I-di-di-di-di, yum, bum, ba-da-di-di-di, I-di-di-di-di, yum, bum, ba-da-di-di-di. The king was amazed. He's still happy. What happened? So he very gingerly went up to the house. He said, am I welcome here? And the cobbler said, come, come. I even have some onions to go with my bread and cheese. You're welcome to share. The king said, I was so worried about you today. I heard about the king's new edict, and I wanted to know, how did you earn a living today? And the cobbler said, well, it's like this. I was trying to figure out the same thing. And these men came by with ropes. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, we go out into the woods, we collect wood, we tie it in bundles, we carry it back to town, and we sell it to people for their fireplaces. And the cobbler said, do you mind if I join you? And the cobbler said, of course. The woodsman said, of course. There's plenty of wood, and there's plenty of people who want to buy. So that's how I earned my living today. I gathered wood in the forest and I sold it in the town, and from that I had enough to earn my daily bread. Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, blessed be God who provides for my needs day by day. The king went back to the palace that night, and he said, this guy can't be real. I've got to figure out something else. So he puts out an edict, said, anybody caught gathering wood in the king's forest will be drafted into the king's guard. And the king's guard doesn't get paid until the end of the month. Well, sure enough, the next day the cobbler goes out to the woods to gather wood. He gets caught. He gets drafted into the king's guard. They issue him a uniform with epaulets and gold buttons and a sword in a scabbard. And he spends the day learning to march back and forth with the rest of the king's guard. And as he's doing that, he knows he's not going to get paid until the end of the month. How am I going to pay for food tonight? But then he gets an idea. This sword is here just for ceremonial purposes. It's got a metal blade. That's worth something. So he goes after he gets off work and he pawns the metal sword blade, and he has enough to buy food till the end of the month. The king comes by, he comes down the street, he hears, hey yum bum, hey I hey yum bum, ba da 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 da, hey yum bum, hey I yum bum, ba da da da, I yum bum, ba da da da, yum bum, ba da da da, yum bum, ya dee die, yum bum, ba da da da, yum bum, ya dee die, yum bum, ba da da da. The king hears that military bit at the end. He knows the men's been marching all day. He says, how did you provide yourself food for tonight? And the cobbler told him, I pawned the blade till the end of the month, then I'll get it back. And in the meantime, I have enough food, enough money to buy food. Here, come share with me. King still isn't satisfied. The next day, the poor cobbler shows up at work. The captain of the guard tells him, a thief has been caught stealing, and it is your job to execute him. The poor cobbler, what does he know from executing people? But he gets smart, and the captain of the guard says, if you don't do it, you'll get executed too. So they march the thief and the cobbler into the middle of the town square where a chopping block has been set up on a platform, and it's hard to tell who's trembling more, the thief or the carpenter. But or the cobbler, they get up onto the platform. The thief is made to kneel with his head on the chopping block, and the cobbler says, know that I am a religious man, and I don't want to kill an innocent person. If this person is guilty, let my sword be metal as always. But if he is innocent, let the blade of my sword turn to wood. And he pulls out his sword from the scabbard. And indeed, the blade is made of wood. At that point, the king comes out of the crowd. And he comes up to the cobbler and he says, do you recognize me? I'm the man who's been coming to visit you. I want you to come and live in the palace with me and teach me to have as much trust in God and as much joy in life as you do. And the king and the cobbler joined hands and sang together, hey yum bum, hey I yum bum ba da I hey yum bum, hey I yum bum ba da yum bum, yai diddy die, yum bum ba da die, yum bum, yai diddy die, yum bum ba da die. And thank you to my backup singers. You now get to come back to work. Our next two pieces are by the very distinguished composer, Cantor Charles Osborne, who had his first singing engagement at the age of 12 as a boy alto in his hometown of Suffern, New York. His original compositions include more than 200 choral pieces. This first piece that we're singing was composed in reaction to the horrible events of October 7th. It is lines from Psalm 91. When you call upon me, I will answer you. I will be with you in distress. The second piece of Charles Osborne's that we're singing is from Psalm 122, Samachti ba'omrim li, I rejoiced when they said to me, let us go up to Jerusalem.
Oh,
is being one of the founders of the North American Jewish Choral Festival, where one of the highlights is the whole community singing Lewandowski's Hallelujah on a staircase or a big open space in a hotel that they're all meeting in. And you can find out on YouTube hundreds and hundreds of people singing this together. Lewandowski was a German-Jewish composer who lived in the 1800s, Polish-Jewish, German-Jewish composer of synagogue music. It's very popular around the world. I learned this is in a Reform congregation when I was a teenager. Lewandowski's Hallelujah, sometimes known as the Jewish version of the Hallelujah chorus.
You don't have to stand.
Or you know of a relative that would be interested. We'll be more than happy to keep you posted on anything going forward. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
still live.
It's still live. So if you want to say something, it's still live. If you want to say something, it's still live.